Excellencies, my friends and colleagues on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. When Adib asked me to speak, he said that one should possibly speak for 8-10 minutes. But my own mind is that I stand before you in deep grief, and in a moment of grief, words are meaningless. What the people of Palestine are going through is unprecedented. We speak of the Nazi Holocaust. This is worse than that. But I will take you back to a bit of what the Palestinians have actually gone through in the last 75 years. 77 years ago, 750,000 Palestinians lost their land. That's 7.5 lakhs. And they lost their homes in a manner most cruel and hideous. They were terrorized, they were raped, they were brutalized. They were shifted from their lovely homes and olive fields in Galilee, in Tiberias, Jaffa, and Accra. They were driven out with guns and napalm and machetes into vast sand dunes where they remain today. At the end of 1948, over 85% Palestinians were ethnically cleansed, despite all promises of the British government and their hatchet man, Lord Balfour, that nothing would happen. The Nakba happened because the world enabled it. That was the movement. 750,000 lost their jobs in the Nakba. Their leaders were arrested. They were sent into prison and to camps well outside their country. So that is why I say, ladies and gentlemen, that today is a moment of immense grief. Gaza burns, entire families. Mothers, fathers, children have been wiped out. Just not in morgues, but in hospitals, schools, and homes. There are no registries kept of the number of people who have died in Gaza. Hospitals have been leveled, refugee camps are bombed, and the living have no space to breathe. So you cannot imagine what a human species is undergoing today. It is a siege on humanity. Journalists, doctors, aid workers are among the dead. Basic rights, food, water, medicines, and shelter are stripped away. A child born in Gaza today will know trauma more rather than play with a toy. We are told that there are costs of war. But when the cost is erasure of a people, a decimation of a race, it is no longer war. It is cruelty. It is barbarism. It is barbarism of a type that the world has never witnessed before, not in the Second World War, not in the First World War. Ladies and gentlemen, to remain neutral today is to be complicit. And our silence feeds into this violence. There are voices that have spoken, but they have been on to no avail. Decades back, Yasser Arafat said, and I quote, "I come bearing an olive branch and a freedom fighter's gun. Do not let the olive branch fall from my hands," unquote. And then speaking in 1997, I'm sorry that the South African ambassador is not here, but Nelson Mandela said, and I quote, "We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of Palestinians." And President Obama, speaking at the United Nations Assembly, General Assembly in 2011, said, and I quote again, "Palestinians deserve a state of their own. I am convinced there is no shortcut to this. The conflict must end, for it has been endured for decades," unquote. I could go on and on with names from Ban Ki-moon to Hugo Chavez to Mohammed and Recep Erdogan. Everyone has spoken, but these are people, like we have heard, whose voices are not heard, when mighty voices from the United States and Europe can silence everyone today. But as I end, let me speak of three principles enunciated by the Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the three stages of Iman. One, if there is injustice, then go and hold the sword of the perpetrator. Uski talwar pakadne. Number two, speak and assert and create a discourse to oppose this injustice. And three, we must believe strongly that we will speak the truth. This came forward clearly in the story of Hazrat Bilal, who refused to speak an untruth under unbearable cruelty. So we have instances when we stand by these principles, and it was Gandhiji, when he started the Satyagraha, who went back to these very same principles, the very same principles enunciated by the Prophet, peace be upon him. So we must create public opinion. As the young lady said, we must create public opinion, not just in this forum, but in our land and across the world. The statistic of 38% support in our country is a shame on us, because obviously this country is unaware of what is happening in such a sensitive part of the world. To accept what is happening is wrong. And therefore, as I end, I call upon the world, not just here, but the world, not just to witness, but to act. Demand a ceasefire. Demand justice. Demand the right of the Palestinians to live in freedom, dignity, and peace. I also appeal to the government of India to put its weight behind this cry for justice and convince the government of Israel to stop this genocide against humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, history watches. Thank you very much.